Well, when I saw it, I just had to have one. This rather BlackBerry-esque device is the Hand386, a handheld 386 computer that contains an actual 386 processor. At its core is a 386 system on a chip, or SoC, that's commonly used in industrial equipment. It measures around 6 inches by 5 inches by a little more than half an inch thick, and it features a full QWERTY keyboard, a 720 by 480 LCD screen, 8 megs of RAM, a 386SX 40 MHz processor, and it uses a compact flash card as the primary storage device. Compact flash is the ideal choice here, since it's basically just IDE standard with a different pinout, making it a breeze for the card to act as a drop-in replacement for a mechanical drive. It also has a USB port on the side, but it's strictly for flash drives only. Still, it's more convenient than removing the compact flash card every time you want to add new software. Internally, the video card supports up to 800 by 600 at 256 colors, and it also has a Yamaha YMF262 OPL3 sound card, which does a great job of providing ad-lib support for older games. Notably lacking is anything to play digitized sound, so most games will be limited to music and not sound effects. The keyboard is serviceable, but by no means great. They're made of rubber and it feels like typing on a cheap calculator. If you've ever used an NES controller, it's like the material used for the select and start buttons. But instead of them being used mostly for pause and menu selection, they're used for everything. But if portable isn't always what you're after, well, the creator of the Hand386 thought of that too. It includes a breakout board that gives you a PS2 keyboard and mouse port, as well as VGA out. And right above where that board connects is a second larger connector that provides you with the entire ISA bus. Now, it may not be as elegant as a full dock, but being able to connect up to 3 ISA cards with an expansion board is pretty nifty. I think the size is pretty incredible when you consider all that it's accomplishing. It kind of looks and feels like one of those handheld emulation systems that's popped up on AliExpress over the past few years. But no emulation here, just the raw power of a full-blown 386 processor. And as a guy who's spent an awful lot of time collecting netbooks, when my friend Mitch sent me the link to the Hand386, well, I knew I had to have one. Well, it's time to fire it up and see what it can do. And after the boot up process is complete, we're dropped at the Windows 95 command line. That's right, it comes pre-installed with a copy of Windows 95. To get into Windows, we just type Win, and then we wait. The performance in Windows 95 is actually better than I was expecting, considering the Hand386's modest hardware. There isn't a lot to do once we're in, since there's not much in the way of included Windows software. But there is a small collection of MIDIs, and they sound pretty good. Of course, Minesweeper and Solitaire are included as well, so you can still have some fun while you wait to load some programs and games of your own. One criticism I have is the included screen. It's clear and bright enough, but it's not a 4:3 aspect ratio display. Instead, it stretches things horizontally to fill the screen, leaving things looking a bit squashed. Returning to DOS, there are a number of games on here. As I filmed, I began to realize how difficult it was to keep the angle on the screen just right, and the device doesn't balance well on its own. So it was time to make something to make that part just a little easier. And I present to you the Handstand, an IBM PS2 Model 25 inspired stand for your Hand386. I'll be uploading the files so that you can print one of your own if that's your thing. I know it'll only help the 50 or so people that bought it, but hopefully someone else gets a kick out of it too. It's got twin faux floppy drives up front, complete with blue buttons. And I even modeled lenses in so that you can see the power and hard drive activity lights while it's running. If we're going with an IBM PS2 theme, we definitely need to bust out the Model M keyboard to get the full desktop experience, even if it does show how comically small the Hand386 is by comparison. By the way, special thanks again to Mitch for sending me this keyboard. I absolutely love it. Now that we're a little more hands-free, let's check out Wolfenstein 3D. As you'd expect for something that required a 286 processor, Wolfenstein 3D runs great. And that Yamaha audio chip is doing great work as well. Not to get too old man about it, but back in my day, I didn't have a sound card at all, just the PC speaker for basic sound effects, so this is quite the upgrade. Moving on to the next generation of first-person shooters, Doom takes some finagling to make it playable. Lower the video quality and shrink the screen, and we at least reach the good enough level of gameplay that makes it enjoyable. And hey, even if the game doesn't look great, you still get that kick-ass soundtrack. I also found the Apogee game Raptor hanging out on the card, and I can't believe I've never played it before. It has a pretty catchy soundtrack, and as a fan of the game 1943, this one's right up my alley. It even has some pretty well done cutscenes. This one just about derailed the video for a day. Now, when Sean at Action Retro hooked up a CRT to his Hand386, both the CRT and the screen on the device were quite dim. So I decided to try an LCD instead, and, to my surprise, that worked like a charm. The video output is bright and very clear, although it does have some faint vertical lines on the display. But it looks like this would be a great option to use the Hand386 as a full-fledged desktop machine. Of course, we need to show off a Star Trek game, and none was included, so I dropped Star Trek 25th Anniversary in. Unfortunately, we can't use the CD version here for obvious reasons, but we still get the wonderful MIDI soundtrack. In terms of battery life, the Hand386 is pretty lacking. I didn't time it exactly, but it was certainly under 2 hours during my filming. Worse yet, the charger wasn't able to keep up with the load, so even while plugged in, it would eventually hit low power and start glitching out. The charging cable on my unit is a bit wonky, so I plan to buy a replacement one in the future and see if that makes things better. Overall, the Hand386 at almost $300 Canadian certainly isn't for everyone. It's fun to play with, but only if you know exactly what you're getting into. I bought it purely for the novelty of having a full-blown 386 in the palm of my hands. But there are certainly better and more enjoyable options to be had out there, and often for significantly less. And to top it off, it seems to have had a pretty limited run, and there simply may be no more units to purchase in the future. But hey, if you're still here, chances are you're like me, and the novelty of it all is enough. And I've got several videos on the way where we're going to push the Hand386 and see what it can do, in both hardware and software. So make sure you get subscribed for those if you aren't already. As always, thanks to my Patreon supporters for helping make videos like this possible. And thanks to all of you for watching. I'll see you again real soon.